Hey, welcome to Life After Nursing School. I'm your host, Caroline Dana, aka Nurse Coach Caroline, and I'm here to help you, the new nurse, thrive in your career. As a former nurse recruiter, nurse manager, and now your personal new nurse career coach, I'm obsessed with making sure you don't just survive your first couple of years at the bedside. I want you to absolutely rock them. From the challenges to the triumphs, I'll be right here with you, giving you the real-world advice and support that you need to shine. Whether you're in nursing school getting ready for life after, or you're already out there in nurse life feeling overwhelmed or even questioning your confidence, I've got your back. I'll be sharing tips, tricks, resources, and strategies that are just for you. We'll dive into everything from landing that dream nursing job to slaying imposter syndrome, and most importantly, how to keep that spark alive and stay the vibrant and amazing nurse that you are. So if you're ready to tackle the things nursing school did not cover, like how to build a career, trust yourself, and keep your passion strong, then get comfortable because we are about to dive in and make nurse life the best life. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, I'm so glad that you found your way to this episode. And if you're a returning listener, thank you truly for being here. Today's episode is for you if you are in your first nursing job or about to start orientation or even somewhere in that first 90-day window thinking, why does this feel so hard and is it supposed to? Let me just say this right up front. The first 90 days feel overwhelming, emotional, and exhausting, and honestly, confidence shaking. It doesn't mean that you're bad at nursing. It means that you're a new nurse. Today, we're talking about what to expect in those first 3 months, what is actually happening behind the scenes, and how confidence is truly built because it's probably not the way you think. So why are the first 90 days so intense? The first 90 days are intense for any job, but especially nursing. The first 90 days of any job are hard, but nursing is different. You're not just learning a new role, you're learning a new unit, new systems, new people, new expectations. And while caring for real human beings who actually depend on you, your brain is processing an enormous amount of information every single shift. So if you go home feeling drained, emotional, or questioning everything, there's a reason for that. Let's break this 90-day window down by phases. So to kick off your first 90 days in your very first nursing job, especially if you're working in a hospital or a facility that's part of a larger health system, you're almost certainly starting with a few days, sometimes a full week of hospital-wide orientation, also usually called new employee orientation. It may be in person, it may be virtual, or it may be a mix. And this week is very much about the big picture, organization level overview. During this time, the organization will walk you through safety policies, OSHA protocols, and general practices that every employee, clinical or non-clinical, needs to be aware of. This is also when they introduce you to who they are as an organization, their history, their mission, their values, and their vision moving forward. Likely hear from several people in leadership roles. You may have a session with employee health. You might meet someone from protective services or security, and you'll probably sit through a variety of presentations that feel very classroom style. I want you to think of this week as exactly that, a classroom learning experience, and it's not hands-on yet, and it's not usually unit specific. It's really just foundational. Typically, organizations start this week with all new employees across the system. Then a few days in, non-clinical staff are excused and patient-facing clinical employees like nurses remain for additional education. And this is usually where topics like PPE, ergonomics, safety practices with patient care come into play and are covered. Part of this orientation week may also include electronic medical record training. You may spend a day or two in a computer lab learning how to navigate Epic, Cerner, or whatever EMR system your facility uses. And I also want to normalize this right now. No one leaves EMR training feeling like an expert, especially as a new nurse. Many times, seeing Epic or Cerner or any type of electronic charting system for the first time can be very, very overwhelming. So don't worry, you're kind of just getting a big overview taste of it. And then once you get on the floor working, the more you use it every day, the quicker you will learn it. But don't worry, that comes later with repetition and real world use. All right, so days 1 through 30 is sort of that orientation shock and survival mode. Okay, we talked about new employer orientation. So now we're moving on to the unit, and that first 30 days is full blown information overload. You're learning how to chart, how to pass meds, how to find supplies, understanding the unit flow. You're learning how to work with a preceptor for the first time, how to collaborate with your peers and other disciplines, and not feel like you're constantly in the way. During this phase, most new nurses feel slow, they feel awkward, they feel dependent, they feel deeply unsure of themselves. And you might even think, I don't know anything, despite going through nursing school. And this is the truth. You're actually not supposed to feel confident right now. Your brain is in data collection mode, not performance mode. This phase is not about being impressive, it's about being safe. If you're asking a million questions, writing everything down, double checking yourself, that's actually not a weakness. That's called professionalism. One of the biggest mindset shifts that I want you to make in the first month is this: confidence is not the goal, learning is. So, I want you to focus on one win per shift, one new skill that you learned, one thing that you understood better today than you did yesterday. That's how progress actually happens. Those first 4 to 6 weeks are truly all about learning. This is not a performance phase. It's really more of an absorption phase. So think of yourself as a sponge, soaking up as much information as you possibly can. The goal during this time is not to be fast and flawless. The goal is to build a solid basic understanding of the role so that when it's time to come off orientation, you are a safe new grad nurse. One of the most important ways to make the most of these first 4 to 6 weeks is to stay curious. Ask questions often. Write down things, especially topics or skills that you want to come back to later. Shadow whenever you're given the opportunity to, and most importantly, be okay admitting that you don't know much yet, because you're really not supposed to. The faster you allow yourself to be open and vulnerable with your preceptor, the faster that you tend to grow. The vulnerability might sound like saying things like, I'm nervous, or I'm not confident in this skill yet, or I'm really eager to learn and I'm open to feedback. That kind of honest communication builds trust and creates a much stronger learning environment. On the flip side, when questions go unasked, or when you hold back for fear of looking inexperienced, it may actually slow your progress. Orientation is not the time to pretend that you have it all together. You get far more out of this phase by being authentic, honest, and teachable. Vulnerability here is not a weakness. It's a strategic advantage. And the nurses who understand that tend to gain confidence more quickly and more safely. So please don't worry about being seen as dumb or that you're asking a stupid question. From my own experience, precepting and orienting both students and new nurses, I can tell you this with complete honesty. Every so-called stupid question has already been asked before, and sometimes even by the experienced nurse when they first started. What actually raises concern for experienced nurses is not questions, it's silence. When someone is on orientation and they never ask a question or seems to just be getting it without any clarification, that can be much more alarming. In many cases, that's not confidence. It's either lack of awareness or overconfidence, and both can actually lead to safety issues down the line. So let me be very clear here. There are no stupid questions. Every question serves a purpose. Every question helps clarify expectations, prevents mistakes, and ultimately protects your patients. Asking questions doesn't make you look unprepared. It makes you look thoughtful, safe, and invested in doing the job well. Okay, now let's pivot to days 31 to 60 are often some of the hardest during your first 90 days. Orientation at this point may be coming to an end for some of you. I hope that you're getting an orientation of at least 8 weeks, but I prefer 12. So at this point, we're coming close to the end of orientation. And now you're really expected to do more on your own. And suddenly you know just enough to realize how much you don't know or how much you still have yet to learn. And at the same time, if you're part of a nurse residency program or cohort, it's very easy to get caught up in the comparison game, comparing your progress to the people around you. And while that's completely human, it's also one of the quickest ways to drain your confidence and feed imposter syndrome. I know it's hard, but if you can consciously pull yourself out of that comparison spiral, it will protect your mindset more than almost anything else during this phase. It's also important to remember that no two orientation experiences are the same. Workflows can vary dramatically from unit to unit and even from shift to shift. So if someone in your cohort seems ahead of you, you may not see the full picture. They might be a completely different unit caring for a different patient population. Their ratios might be lighter. They may have an incredibly experienced preceptor, or they may have worked on that unit as a tech before transitioning to the RN role. There are many variables that influence how quickly a new nurse appears to progress, and no two new grads will ever have the same skill set, background, and orientation experience. What is within your control is your level of dedication, curiosity, and engagement in your own learning. When you keep your focus there on what you can control, you set yourself up for steady, meaningful growth without letting comparison steal your confidence. So during this phase of day 31 to 60, this is when many new nurses experience increased anxiety before shifts, feeling exposed or unsupported, obsessing over small mistakes, comparison traps with their peers, and even questioning their job, their unit, or nursing altogether. Let me normalize something for you. This is the phase where most new nurses start to think, will I actually be a competent nurse at the end of orientation? And they start to question if this is even the right career choice for them. These thoughts don't come because this new grad is incapable, but because of awareness, and your awareness increases before your confidence does. You're no longer blissfully unaware of what you have yet to learn. Instead, you're aware of all the things that you still have yet to learn, and that feels very uncomfortable. Your finish line orientation is approaching, and it's like someone turned the heat up on the stovetop. If this is you, please hear me when I say this. Discomfort does not mean incompetence. This is the phase where real learning and real doing begins. You're no longer just watching and assisting. You're the one giving discharge instructions. You're the one completing pre-op checklists for upcoming surgeries. You're the one reconciling meds. In other words, this is where things start to feel very real very quickly. Your preceptor begins to step back. They loosen the reins, and they intentionally push you to take on tasks that feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and sometimes downright intimidating. And that can feel scary because the safety net suddenly feels a little bit further away. Here's what's important to remember. Your brain is wired to protect you. So when you feel uncomfortable or nervous, your brain's instinct is to say, retreat, step back, this is risky. And that's often the exact moment when imposter syndrome shows up with thoughts like, I can't do this, or maybe I'm not cut out for this, or I'm not competent enough yet. I want you to know that this thought pattern is completely normal. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're stretching. This is the moment where you get to take the reins back and consciously flip the script. Pause, take a deep breath, remind yourself that you're smart and capable because you didn't accidentally make it through nursing school. Everyone starts somewhere. You can't become confident without taking that first step, that first try, that first moment of discomfort. This is how confidence is built, one rep at a time. Since you are in the thick of it phase, you may find that you are consumed by thoughts that are work related all the dang time. I'm talking about when you leave work, when you're at the grocery store, when you are sitting in traffic or watching a movie. This season of your career may be one of the most trying times because the learning curve is so steep. But it's normal to think about work, especially if it's a job that we truly care about. With that being said, we don't want to ruminate here. We don't want all consuming thoughts that are anxiety ridden. Instead of ruminating after shifts, I want you to try something like this. Ask yourself, what did I learn today? Seek feedback instead of reassurance, and identify one or two safe nurses that you can go to. By this point, you should have built a decent rapport with a few nurses on the unit, hopefully including your preceptor. These are your people, so use them as resources, especially if you make a mistake or find yourself struggling with certain parts of the job. You are not meant to figure all of this out alone. Something important to recognize at this stage is that you probably already know where you feel less confident. Maybe you haven't had much exposure to the admission process yet. Maybe placing indwelling Foley catheters still feels really uncomfortable and scary. Or maybe charting is taking you longer than you'd like. This awareness is actually a good thing. It means you're becoming more self-reflective. This is the time to identify those blind spots and create a plan with your preceptor. That might look like shadowing every nurse who has an admission that day. Or it might mean that your preceptor mentions at huddle that if anyone is placing an indwelling catheter, you'd like the opportunity to do it, or at least observe. Being intentional about skills that you want more exposure to at this point can make a huge difference in your success. Think about it this way. If you come off orientation still unsure how to admit a patient, what is going to happen when you get your first admission on your own? Orientation is the safest time to ask, practice, and learn. After orientation ends is not the ideal moment to realize you don't know how to do something. And one more reminder, please stop comparing yourself to nurses with years of experience. You are not behind. You are simply new. Make the most of this phase. The learning here is deep, the work is hard, and the growth you're building right now will carry you forward long after orientation ends. Okay, moving to the third phase, which is days 61 to 90, okay? Somewhere between these days, something will shift. Things don't feel easy, but they start to feel familiar. You start recognizing patterns. You anticipate needs more often. You recover faster after hard shifts. You might not feel confident yet, but you are becoming competent. And signs that you're doing better than you think are you know when to ask for help. You catch things earlier. You trust your judgment a little bit more. You're not panicking over everything. Things that used to scare you don't scare you as much anymore. This is where confidence slowly starts to grow. Not because you told yourself to be confident, but because you earned it through repetition. At this point, you're likely approaching the finish line of orientation, or maybe you've just come off orientation entirely. And if you're being honest with yourself, you might even be thinking, am I really ready to be on my own? You may notice thoughts like, I don't feel confident yet, or I still have so much to learn, or what if something comes up that I never saw during orientation? Here's the truth, and I want you to really hear this. No new grad has ever felt 100% ready when orientation ends. No one feels fully confident in their skills at this point. That feeling isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a normal part of the transition. What matters most is not perfection or total confidence. What matters is that you now have a solid understanding of the job, your workflow, the medications that you commonly administer, how you prioritize your tasks, and how to advocate for your patients. Even more important than any individual skill is this. By now, you should know how to speak up about safety concerns and who your resources are when you're unsure. That is foundational. You will absolutely encounter situations that you didn't have or didn't see during orientation. You'll absolutely come across medications that you've never given before, or orders that feel unfamiliar, or scenarios that catch you off guard. That's expected. The beauty and curse of nursing. What's different now is that you know how to pause, ask yourself the right safety questions, and bring those concerns to the appropriate people who can guide you toward the safest next step. That is what being a safe, competent new nurse actually looks like. One thing I encourage every new nurse to do during this phase is track your growth. Instead of comparing yourself to other nurses, take a moment to compare yourself now to the version of you on day one. Take a moment to recognize the journey you've been on and the growth that you've endured, because the growth is there, even if it's subtle. Okay, now that we've talked about what those first 90 days will likely look like, let's talk about confidence for a minute, because this is something that so many new nurses get wrong. Confidence is not something that you either have or you don't have. It's not a personality trait, and it's not something that you're supposed to show up with on day one. Confidence is built over time, and it's built in a very specific way. It comes from repetition, which I know I've already mentioned in this episode. So doing the same tasks over and over again will start to make them feel more familiar, which also makes them feel less scary. Confidence also comes from reflection, thinking about what went well, what didn't, and what you're learning along the way. And it comes from support, having people around you to answer questions, give feedback, and help you grow. Here's something I really want you to hear. You do not need to love your job yet. You're allowed to be unsure. You're allowed to feel conflicted. You're allowed to grow into this role slowly. In these early months, safety, humility, and self-awareness matter far more than looking confident. A nurse who asks questions, double checks themselves, and knows when to speak up is far safer than a nurse who looks confident but doesn't ask for help. So let's talk a bit more about speaking up and when to seek support. There is a difference between normal new nurse discomfort and an unsafe work environment, and it's important to know the difference. Some red flags in the first 90 days include being shamed for asking questions, given an unsafe assignment, having no consistent support or guidance, feeling afraid to speak up at all, and also being pulled off orientation early to meet staffing needs. Those are not rites of passage. Those are actually signs that something isn't right. Self-advocacy is not complaining. It's part of being a professional nurse. Whether that means talking to your preceptor, an educator, your manager, or your residency coordinator, you deserve support during this transition. Asking for help, clarity, or guidance is not weakness. It's responsibility. And remembering that can make all the difference as you move from surviving these first few months to truly growing into your role. Before we wrap up this episode, I want to make sure you know that you don't have to navigate this orientation phase alone, and you don't have to learn it all at once. I actually have a few earlier episodes of the show that pair really well with today's conversation and can help you get even more out of your orientation experience. The first one is episode 28, titled New Nurses, What No One Tells You During Orientation. In that episode, we talk about things that often get overlooked, like basic 401k questions, how to handle intimidating or difficult coworkers, and what I recommend keeping in your work bag, and more behind the scenes realities of being a new nurse. In the next episode that I want to point you to is episode 31, Surviving Nursing Orientation When Your Preceptor Isn't the Best Fit. I really love this episode because the truth is, not every nurse who precepts knows how to teach well, and not every preceptor is the right match for every new grad. In that episode, I share very tangible, realistic ways to navigate that relationship and advocate for yourself while still being professional. And then finally, episode 36 is geared toward helping you build your critical thinking skills as quickly as possible. It's titled How New Nurses Can Use ChatGPT to Build Critical Thinking Skills. This one is especially helpful if you're looking for ways to strengthen your clinical thinking outside of your shifts. I'll make sure to add all of these episodes in the show notes so that you can easily find them and come back to them whenever you need extra support. All right, let me give you a closing big sister pep talk. If you're in your first 90 days and thinking, why does everyone else seem to have it all together except for me? Let me gently remind you, you are exactly where you're supposed to be, my friend. This season is temporary. I promise it won't always feel this heavy, and one day you'll look back and realize just how far you grew. You are not failing. You are simply becoming. If this episode resonates with you, I'd love for you to share it with another new nurse or someone that might need a reminder that they're not alone on the unit. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow the show and leave a review. It truly helps this podcast reach more new nurses who need support during the season too. As always, until next time, I have one hand for me, the other for you. Signing off. Well, that's it for today's episode of Life After Nursing School. I hope you feel more confident and ready to tackle the challenges that come with starting your nursing career. Remember, the first year or two might not be easy, but with the right mindset, you can overcome anything. If you found value in today's episode, I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. Also, please consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps so much in reaching other new nurses like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, you've got this. Take care and see you next time.